Welcome back to Social Chapter 3, Production and Employment, Part 3, Employment, the Working Life in India. First of all, we have to understand that the gross domestic product of a country has a close relation with the total number of working people in that country. According to the 2011 census of India, out of 1.2 billion population in India, 460 million people are workers. That is, people engaged in some productive activities. The following table will give you a clear picture. Here the table 3.1 gives you a clear picture about the distribution of workers in India by industry in 2009-2010. Here you can see the sectors: agricultural sector, industrial sector and service sectors. And the second column contains the place of residence. That means from which area the workers come, whether it is from the rural area or the urban area, and their sex, whether they are male or females. Here you can see clearly from the agricultural sector, 68% of the workers come from rural area and only 8% of the workers belong to urban area. In that, 47% are male and 69% of the workers are female in the agricultural sector. In the industrial sector, 17% of the workers are coming from rural areas and 34% of the workers are coming from urban areas. In that, 34% are males and 16% are females. In the service sector, 15% of the workers are coming from rural areas and 58% of the workers are coming from urban areas. In that, 19% are male and 15% are females. Observe the table properly. Read the above table and fill in the blanks. Majority of the workers in agriculture are living in which areas? Yes, it is in the rural areas. Most dash workers are employed in agriculture sector. Most of the rural workers, it is about the 68% of the workers are employed in agriculture sector. Only a small section of dash is in industrial sector. Here you can see all worker status. There is only 22% of the workers are employed in industrial sector. More than 90% of the workers are getting employment in industrial and service sector. Here you can see the urban contribution of the workers, that is 34% in industrial sector and 58% in the service sector. If we add together, we will get 92%. Compared to males, female workers are getting employment in industrial and service sectors only to a small extent. That is only 16% in industrial sector and 15% in service sector. It is very less comparing to the males. Here you can see two pie charts that explains sectoral shares of employment in 1970-73 and 2009 and 10. In the 1970-73 pie chart, you can see that the share of employment by agriculture sector was 74%, whereas in industry it was 11% and in service sector it was 15%. Now let us see what is the condition in 2009 and 10. The share of employment by agriculture sector decreased to 53%, whereas the industrial sector share increased to 22% and the service sector share increased to 25%. We can transform the pie charts into a table, and here you can see the previous pie charts that are transformed into a table here. Table 3, which explains sectoral shares of employment in 1970-73 and 2009-10. Here you can see the sectoral share of agriculture in 1970-73 was 74, whereas it was only 53 in 2009-10. In 1970-73, the share of industry was only 11%, but it increased to 22 in 2009-10. The share of service sector was 15% in 1972-73, whereas it increased to 25% in 2009-10. We can present data in different ways. Here you can see the sectoral shares of employment in 1972-73 and 2009-10 are presented in bar charts. We have already discussed about this. Now let us discuss about what are the reasons for these changes. The agriculture sector continues to be the largest employment providing sector in India even now. Number 2, it is because not enough jobs were created in the industry and service sectors. Already you can see the industrial sector and service sectors increased. But the problem is that there was no enough employment generation. Number 3, even though production of industrial goods went up more than 9 times during the period, employment went up only by around 3 times. Number 4, the same thing happened in service sectors too. While the production rose by more than 14 times, the employment rose around 5 times only. In the previous discussion, we have learned about the shares of 3 sectors in employment. But now, here we are going to learn about the shares of 3 sectors in GDP in the year 1972-73 and 2009 and 10. Here in this pie chart you can see that the share of agriculture was 43% in 1972-73. But here you can see it decreased to 17% in 2009 and 10. The share of industry was 22% in 1970-73, which increased to 26% in 2009 and 10. The share of service sector was 36% in 1970-73, which increased to 57% in 2009 and 10. So here you can see the importance of the different sectors are changing. The previous pie chart data is transformed into a table here. It explains the different sectors' shares to GDP in the year 1970-73 and 2009 and 10. The share of agriculture to GDP in 1970-73 was 43%, which was decreased to 17% in 2009 and 10. The share of industry was 22% in 1970-73, which increased to 26% in 2009 and 10. The share of service sector was 35% in 1970-73, which increased to 57% in 2009 and 10. Let us now observe and compare the above 2 pairs of pie diagrams and fill the given table. Here the first set of pie charts shows the sectoral shares to employment, and the second set of pie charts shows the sectoral shares to gross domestic product. Here you can see there are 3 sectors: agriculture, industry and service. The agriculture sector's contribution to employment in 1972-73 was 74%, which decreased to 53% in 2009-10. The contribution to gross domestic product was 42% in 1972-73, which decreased to 17% in 2009-10. Here you can clearly see that 53% of the people are contributing only 17% to the GDP. Second sector, industry, it was 11% in 1970-73, which increased to 22% in 2009-10. In 1972-73, the contribution to gross domestic product by industry was 22%, which increased only to 26% in 2009-10. There was a 50% increase in employment in the industrial sector, but the contribution to GDP increased only 4%. And the third sector, services, contributed 15% to the employment in 1970-73, which increased to 25% in 2009-10. Here you can see The 15% of the employees contributed 36% of the gross domestic product, and it increased to 57% in 2009-10, and here you can see clearly the service sector is the highest contributing sector to gross domestic product in India. From the above analysis of pie charts and tables, we can make some conclusions. Firstly, more than half of the workers in the country are working in agricultural sector but produces only 1/6 of the GDP. That is, in 2009-10, the employment by agriculture sector was 53%, but the contribution to GDP was only 17%. Secondly, in contrast to this, the industry and service sectors produce the rest of GDP, whereas they employ only about half of the population of workers. That is, in 2009-10, the employment provided by the service and industrial sectors together was only 47%, but the contribution to GDP was about 83%. It means that there is underemployment, that is, more people are employed than required in agriculture sector. So, even if few people move out from the agriculture, the production will not be affected. And finally, each one is doing some work, but no one is fully employed. This kind of underemployment is hidden and not clearly visible as unemployment. Hence, it is also called as disguised unemployment. So far, we have seen how different sectors contribute to gross domestic product of India and also realized the comparative importance of the three sectors. This helps us to analyze the shifts that take place or don't take place for both production and employment. In our country, we don't see substantial shift in employment. To explore this, we use another classification method focusing on the nature of employment, that is the organized and unorganized sector employment in India, that emphasizes the problems of employment and the associated conditions of work even more starkly. Let us start the discussion with the case study of Narasimha. He works in a government office. He attends his office from 9:30 to 5:30 p.m. That is fixed time. He uses his motorbike to travel from his house to office, which is about 5 kilometers. He gets his salary regularly at the end of every month deposited in his bank account. In addition to the salary, he also gets provident fund as per the rules laid down by the government. He also gets medical and other allowances. Narasimha does not go to office on Sundays. That is a paid holiday. When he joined work, he was given an appointment letter stating that the terms and conditions of the work. Now let us go through the case of Rajeshwari. She is a construction worker and works from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. She travels 8 to 10 kilometers every day by bus. She gets only a lunch break in between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. She gets work only 10 to 12 days in a month and her wage is rupees 150 per day. She gets more work from February to June and July to January is unseasonal. She is a member of a self-help group. She will not get any compensation if any death or major injury and no help for treatment. She works under a mason. 6 to 10 laborers work under him. In the above two case studies, Narasimha falls under organized sector and Rajeshwari comes under unorganized sector. Now let us see what is organized sector. The organized sector covers those enterprises or place of work where the terms of employment are regular and people have assured work. People who work in the government or with large establishments are all in the organized sector. For example, government employees. Now let us see what is unorganized sector. Unorganized sector is one where the employment terms are not fixed and regular, as well as the enterprises are not registered with the government. For example, daily wage workers, construction laborers, etc. We have already learned about the differences between organized sector and unorganized sector. Now let us go through some of the important features of the organized sector. The organized sector covers those enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and therefore people have assured work. People work in the government sector or with the registered companies or large establishments are in the organized sector. Organized sector workers enjoy security of employment, medical benefits, paid leaves, retirement benefits, etc. Now let us go through the features of unorganized sector. The unorganized sector is characterized by small and scattered units which have remained largely outside the control of government. There are rules and regulations, but these are not followed or enforced. Here, the employment is not secure, not regular, no paid leaves, no provision for overtime, etc. Unorganized sector includes a large number of people who are employed on their own, that is self-employed, farmers, street vendors, those doing repair work, construction workers, etc. Now let us compare the organized sector with the unorganized sector. In the organized sector, the employment is regular. The entry is restricted by certain procedures like exams, physical tests, interview, etc. and necessary qualifications and skills are required. Whereas in the unorganized sector, the employment is not regular, entry is not restricted, not much or nil procedures and qualifications required. Secondly, in organized sector, they are registered by the government or the government itself and how to follow rules and regulations given in various laws like Factories Act, Minimum Wages Act, etc. There are small and scattered units which have remained largely outside the control of the government is there in the unorganized sector. There are rules but they are not followed or enforced. Thirdly, in the organized sector, fixed hours of work is there and payment for overtime is also there. But in the unorganized sector, there is no fixed time for work and no provision for overtime. Fourthly, there is high and regular payments with the provision of paid leaves in the organized sector. But in the unorganized sector, these jobs are low paid without regular payments and provision for paid leaves or holidays. In the organized sector, the employer has to ensure facilities like drinking water and safe working environment. But in the unorganized sector, there are no such facilities are available. When the workers retire, they will get pensions and other benefits in the organized sector. But there is no retirement provisions in the unorganized sector. Finally, the work with the government or companies or large established and well organized jobs are called organized sector jobs. Whereas the workers are self-employed, scattered, unorganized and doing odd jobs are coming under unorganized sector. In the rural areas, the unorganized sector comprises of small and marginal farmers, sharecroppers and artisans such as weavers, blacksmiths, carpenters and goldsmiths. Nearly 80% of the households in India are in small and marginal farmers. They need support, timely delivery of seeds and agricultural inputs, credit storage facilities and marketing outlets. The farm laborers require adequate work and payments of minimum wages. In the urban areas, the unorganized sector comprises mainly of workers in small-scale industry, casual workers in trade and transport, street vendors, construction workers, headload workers, garment makers, rag pickers, painters, plumbers, repair persons and others doing odd jobs, etc. Here you can observe table 3.2 which shows contribution of organized and unorganized sectors to employment and gross domestic product in India. The organized sector contribute 8% to the employment, which in turn contributes 50% of the gross domestic product. But the contribution of unorganized sector to employment is 92%, but their share to gross domestic product is 50%. So here you can see clearly the 8% of the organized sector contributes to the 50% of the GDP of India, whereas the 92% of the unorganized sector contributes only 50% of the gross domestic product of India. From the above table, it is clear that 92% of the workers are found in unorganized sector and only 8% of the workers are in the organized sector. During 2004-05, the 92% of the unorganized sector workers contributed 50% of the production, whereas the 8% of the organized sector workers also contributed 50% of the production of goods and services in India. Now let us learn how to create more and better conditions of employment. We have learned about the sector's growth and production has increased in industry and service sectors without a similar increase in employment. When we look at how people are employed, we find that most people are in unorganized sector, barely able to find work. The increase in the production is benefiting only 8% of workers. So we have to discuss about how to create more and better conditions of employment. Now let us go through the case study of Gayatri, who owns 2 hectares plot of unirrigated land. She needs seeds, fertilizers, agricultural equipments and pump sets to draw water. Usually she borrows money from a money lender and pay high rate of interest. If the government and local bank helps her to get credit at reasonable rate of interest, she will be able to buy these in time and cultivate her land. If it happens, means if the government or the bank helps her, she would be able to take a second crop of wheat during the Rabi season, can provide employment to 2 people for 50 days in her own field. So she will have a better life as well as be able to provide jobs for others. Now suppose many small dams are constructed and canals are dug to irrigate many such farms. It will change the lifestyle of unirrigated villages. Now let us see what the governments can do. They can provide irrigation facilities by constructing dams and wells. Secondly, investment of money in transportation and storage of crops that will reduce the damage of the crops. That is to make better rural roads so that mini trucks reach everywhere and thus several farmers like Gayatri would be benefited. In order to provide better conditions of employment, there is a need of provision of credits through government institutions and nationalized banks with less interest rates. Setting up of small industries that will boost the production of rural areas like flour mill, cold storages, collection centers, vegetable processing centers, etc. The governments are not only supposed to generate new employment opportunities, but also train the workers to work efficiently with machines and new technology. They should invest in many industries in both rural and semi-urban areas so that they will be able to produce many more goods and services. There should be tax exemptions, proper education, product diversification, etc. to create more and better conditions of employment. Now let us go through the important keywords in this lesson. Gross domestic product. The total value of all finished goods and services produced in the domestic territory of a country during a specific period of time is called gross domestic product or GDP. Now let us see what are final goods. The final goods are those goods which have completed the process of production and are ready for use by the final consumers. Now let us see what are sectoral goods. The term used to describe a category of companies that are involved in providing the tools, materials, components, machinery, and other goods used in agricultural, construction, manufacturing, and other industrial applications. These are finished goods and not purchased by the general public as opposed to consumer goods which are meant to be bought by the general public. Now let us learn about employment shifts, that is, the change of employment from agriculture sector to industrial and service sectors. Organized sector. The enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and therefore people have assured work and other benefits like fixed time, regular payment, paid leaves, pensions, etc. Unorganized sector. The unorganized sector is characterized by small and scattered units which have remained largely outside the control of the government, and so there will be no benefits like the organized sector. Dear learners, hope you understood this session very well. Thank you for watching this video presentation.